college football is almost here, folks. Just a couple of weeks away from week 0 in college football. What does it all mean? College football has several games. It's like the appetizer before the meal the following weekend, of course, which is Labor Day, and then naturally the National Football League starts. We're going to do it all again and bring in Mark Zinno for the very latest on these upcoming games coming up in a couple of weeks. Mark, thanks for coming on Newswire. August 23rd are the openers. It seems like we do have, at the very least, one really good game potentially on the schedule, and then several others. And look, football's back. I think we'll be watching no matter who suits up on Saturday.
Yeah, look, it's, I think there's some interesting games on the slate for week 0, as they call it. You mentioned Iowa, Kansas State, that game across the pond, right, in Dublin, Ireland. And that's certainly the one that everybody's going to have their eyes on. I'm actually looking forward to Stanford versus Hawaii. Frank Reich now over at Stanford, Andrew Luck running things there as well. I know going to the island is always tough, but there's a feeling here that I have that Stanford may be able to surprise Hawaii and pull out a victory in this game. I like the fact that they're a short dog here. It's kind of making it very interesting for me.
Yeah, Hawaii -1.5 currently over on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Also, as Mark mentioned, we've got that Iowa State-Kansas game, Idaho State against UNLV, the debut, I believe, of Dan Mullen as the head coach there, Fresno State, Kansas, Sam Houston, and Western Kentucky. That is the rest of the schedule. One other team I wanted to just mention in college before we move on, talking some NFL football, Mark, is the Colorado Buffaloes. Certainly, we got the good news that Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, is now cancer-free and healthy going into the season, albeit has to go through a lot this offseason. Their win total is really low. It's 5.5 going into the season to win the Big 12 and even to make the college football playoff seems like such a enormous long shot. Do you think that this is more of a result of losing players like they did and Hunter and Shedeur Sanders and some others to the National Football League, or it just simply once every few years Colorado will be good and then the rest of the time they'll be average, which is a lot of teams at that level in college football?
Look, I mean, arguably, you had two of the best players in college football last year on Colorado's roster, and one of those guys played both ways. So in theory, it was 3 players who were the best players in college football on that Colorado roster have now departed. That said, it's going to be very tough for this Colorado team to win games because here's the difference. Their defense was awful last year, but they had Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter to keep them in games offensively. Those guys aren't there anymore. Their defense is still going to be really bad. I just don't know that they have the offense to be able to keep up and play catch up here. I took under 5.5 on the win total. I missed a 6.5, but I'm still fairly confident this is not a bowl team when you look at their schedule and what they have ahead of them in the Big 12. They're not really going to be done any favors this year, especially given the fact that they are a team that a lot of people will be gunning after. I mean, just look at their home games in and of itself. Wyoming's a team that can score a lot of points on offense. That's a problem for them. BYU, even though they changed quarterbacks, still will be a tough out. Arizona and Arizona State are their home games. I don't know that they're going to be any good on the road. Yes, Delaware is an interesting, not Delaware, I'm sorry. Georgia Tech's going to be a very interesting matchup in week 1. I actually like Georgia Tech in week 1, not only to cover that spread, but to go over their team total on offense.
Let's get to the National Football League. And Mark, certainly you have your fair share of covering the Atlanta Falcons. Let's take a look at their win total, 8.5 on the season. -160 to win the South, playoffs +136. And to win the NFC, they are 30-1. Michael Penix Jr. will be, of course, one of the featured players this season, given the fact that he's replacing Kirk Cousins. Cousins still on the roster for the time being. And look, a lot of optimism for Atlanta. We've certainly seen that before. Do you think that this is a season that they make a big jump?
I mean, look, they've won 7 games, I think 3 or 4 years straight. So big jump to 10 wins to make the playoffs. I don't know if that's a big jump, but it's a jump. It's a significant one. I think they make the playoffs for the first time in 7 years. When you look at the rest of the NFC, I mean, unless you're going to get 3 playoff teams from the East or 3 playoff teams from the North, which I don't know that you will, I feel like this is very viable for them to make the postseason. I wouldn't take them to win the division. I don't think they're better than Tampa Bay, despite the fact that they've had Tampa Bay's number and have been able to beat them fairly routinely. Tampa Bay is probably the better team overall. And considering they've won the division 3 years in a row, I'd give an edge to the Buccaneers here in this spot. But I think the Falcons, certainly to make the playoffs at plus money, is a worthwhile wager.
Meanwhile, Bijan Robinson, certainly his props are all out, as all the NFL players are. A lot of folks are projecting maybe for him to catch the rushing title this year. Hard to beat what Barkley did last year. I don't know that we'll see 2,000 again. 1,200 rushing yards, 10 touchdowns, 8-1 to win the rushing title. Atlanta certainly handed over the keys a little bit to him last year. You think they even do it more this year?
Sure, I think he's going to be a bigger part of the offense, but to be the rushing yards leader will be very tough. The system that he's playing in under Zach Robinson, which is the same system that the Los Angeles Rams and Sean McVay play under. It's not a very run heavy system. Bijan will be used. Bijan will get plenty of touches, but some of those are going to be in pass catches out of the backfield. Now, if you can look for a prop over or under 2,000 yards from scrimmage type deal, that's something I think you should be worthwhile looking in with Bijan because that's more of where you're going to see him do it. They're going to involve him in the pass game often. Yes, he'll probably have 1,000 yards rushing. Will he go over that 1,200? Could very well be. I mean, if he has a couple of long touchdown runs here and breaks him, where he has 150 yards in a couple of games this year, yeah, I think he can get over that number. But I don't think he's going to be in vying for the rushing yards leader when it's all said and done. But again, when you talk about total yards from scrimmage, he'll be at the top of the league.
Let's close out with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Very hard to find anybody breaking down sports betting or anything to do with Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers. Everyone seems to be going the other way. Maybe it is time, Mark, to go, to zig when everybody zags, so to speak. I mean, 8.5 is their win total. Nobody wants to bet the over there. Nobody wants to take them to win the playoffs. No one wants to bet over on any of Aaron Rodgers' props. And so, I'm looking for that sort of sliver here to say, hey, look, maybe even though it feels like they're going the other way this year, maybe we'll be wrong.
Well, I did. Look, I've took a flyer on the Steelers to win the AFC North at plus 550, and I have Aaron Rodgers over 3,200 and a half passing yards. That's an incredibly number. But Aaron Rodgers has to average 200 yards a game to go over that number. You're only saying that he's not going to get there if he doesn't stay healthy. I think he absolutely will stay healthy. I think the minute they got a second tight end and Jonnu Smith opened up for them, Aaron Rodgers, a year after the Achilles, is still going to be able to play all 17 games and go over 3,200 yards here in 17 games.